So we've all at one point or another in life needed to prove ourselves to someone else. We're going to take a deep dive into this topic with a top female race car driver and proving people wrong. All right, if they underestimate you, they'll get it in the end.
Basically, if you see me in one of those, I've made it.
The guy was like, oh, you have to get a girl to race?
We have those. We have that.
To really prove, like, I'm not just a fair weather fan.
Not a lawnmower. They didn't put me on a lawnmower.
Here we go again, Dylan.
What do you mean the car's not built? Like,
Is that really where the winners come
Said
from?
I never judged myself on my wins. It was always on my losses.
That's just kind of the risk of racing.
Sierra, thank you so much for coming out and chatting with us. So why don't you start by just telling us, what do you do for a living?
Well, first off, I am a professional off-road racer.
Dang.
Yes.
Very exciting.
So I have been racing since I was 15 years old. It's about 7 years now. And
Nice.
I'm currently pursuing it as a career.
And it sounds like
Heck
you
yeah.
actually were in a race car before you were even like old enough to get out of a car seat, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I've
it's
grown
in the
up in the
blood.
industry, and I was actually a professional race car driver before I had my license. So I
Really?
could.
What? How is that possible?
Yeah, so I was
So
racing.
you had to learn the
in-
rules later after you're like, I've already figured them out.
Yeah. So I took my driver's test. I'm like, well, that was a breeze. Like, anything else? You want to go hit some jumps? Like,
Just do some donuts at your test.
yeah.
just be like,
The guy's like, you failed.
That's so exciting. So tell me, what is the, tell me what kind of racing you do, what's the racing system like, and what's the highest goal you could achieve? So like, what's the Super Bowl of racing in your world?
So basically, I started off in short course racing, which is it's a small track, usually anywhere from like 8 miles to 12 miles, and you're gone for probably 45 minutes. And then I kind of moved up to what we call desert racing, where it's longer distances. You're in the car for anywhere from 5 hours to 15 hours.
Wow.
So basically,
time.
you're going from point to point, and your essentially pit crew has to chase you around and give you fuel, fix the car, do whatever they need to do. But it's a different type of racing. But I'm currently doing desert racing.
Oh, nice.
So I have two questions. One, I want to know about the crew that's following you. How do they get ahead of you when you're going so fast?
So basically, I'm in the desert doing, say, 50 miles, and sometimes my pit crew, they're usually on the highway doing probably
gotcha. So it's
like
a
5
roundabout
miles.
thing. Yeah,
So
okay.
they get to the pit stops faster than I do. So I'm able to get fuel from them, and they're able to look over the car.
Okay, and what kind of car
fascinating.
are you? So Matt's going to bring up one. So what
So
should
you
we type into Google
Type
to
in
find?
like a Polaris Razor.
So this is it.
Yeah, so basically
And you
it's-
own one of these things.
Yeah, I have
Oh.
9
what-
of them.
You have 9 of these
9
cars?
Polaris Razors, yeah.
But
So
you only
if you-
race the fastest one, right? Or
Yeah.
are they all equal? In different, they're all just
So
tuned
so
different,
that's
probably.
basically that's like exactly a desert car. So
Oh, that
you
looks
can
so
see
fun.
in like some images how they come stock, like
Yeah.
completely from the factory,
Uh-huh.
and then we build them up to look like the race car right there.
Nice.
So they're completely different, but they're all built up and basically meant to do the type of racing that we do. So they're stronger and they can go longer distances.
So that pit
Oh.
crew brings you a second car. If yours breaks, you hop in a new one?
No, so if yours
Oh.
breaks, then you're done. You're out of the race. But they
over.
have spare parts to be able to fix the car and to keep you going.
Have you ever had anything
Oh.
break while racing?
Oh yes,
Oh,
all
very-
the time. But that's the cool thing about desert racing is that you're in the race for a long period of time, so you have the ability to break something, fix it, and still be in contingency for a podium.
Gotcha.
or
Because
a
I have to
good
imagine,
finish.
because there's so many hours that you actually could take a minute, fix something, and still have a chance of
Yes.
placing.
Yes. So in desert racing, I mean, we break all the time. Something stupid is you pop a tire or you break like an axle, and something that you could take probably 20 minutes to fix. You fix it, you get back on the race course, and I mean, most of the time you can still make up that time and be able to finish good.
Okay, so you're more of an endurance racer.
Yeah.
So do you pass people ever, or is
Yes.
it like okay?
Yeah. So in racing, there's usually anywhere from like 20 in my class, and sometimes there's 70 in my class. So you're all out there going from point to point. So yeah, you do catch other people.
So you all start at the same time?
We all start 30 seconds apart.
Okay.
30 seconds or a minute, just depending on what they decide. But yeah, sometimes you catch people and it's really dusty and you have to basically blindly drive
Oh,
through their
man.
dust at 60, 70 miles an hour to pass
That's
them
crazy.
just to get some
That
fresh
is
air for a
crazy.
little bit.
Is that a strategy? You try to blind them with your dust?
Oh yeah, you know, you kind
You
of
do?
like you go left and right a little bit to make more dust. Yeah.
They're like, oh, but you've got
Far
your helmet
back
on?
do you need to pull back from that then, Sarah? So if you get caught behind someone, how far back do you need to pull before you can like clearly see, or you know, so you don't just go
Yeah.
off the road?
Well, what I do is when I catch somebody's dust, I usually push really hard to get up to their bumper so that I can get the clean air that's in front of them. So I never
smart.
sit there and just follow in somebody's dust, because then you can't see and you're losing positions, you're losing time. So essentially you want to get in front of them. So it's kind of like risk versus reward. You got to take the risk and drive through their dust and then
Oh,
pass
right.
them to get some clean air.
Have you crashed doing
Wow.
that before?
Yes, I have crashed before.
I was going to say that's probably
Yeah.
really difficult to do to see.
Yeah, because I mean, you're in the desert, so you never know what's going to come up next. There could be a ginormous boulder
Oh.
in the middle of the course. There can be
Yeah.
another car stopped there. I mean, you're fighting the elements of not only you, but your car, but also the desert. So, yeah.
So if you get in an accident, are you more at risk to hit like a rock or a tree or an animal or another car?
Or
all of the
cactus?
above.
They're all equally
They're
risky?
they're pretty equal, but the biggest thing is probably the rocks, because it's the desert and there's ginormous boulders everywhere. And if you're in somebody's dust, you can't see them. And so that's just kind of the risk of racing.
I guess it'd be fun to kind of dive into just the mentality that you've had to have. So it's not always common for people to be professional race car drivers when they go through school and grow up. So especially being a female, there's much less females in racing, it seems like, kind of like magic. So what's the kind of mentality you've developed just being kind of a minority in the sport?
So when I first started off in the industry, it was a little hard coming into it, because there's not many females in the industry. It is male dominated. And so they see a girl with her nails done, her hair curled, eyelashes done, and so they don't take you as seriously. They're like, oh, you know, just a girl doing it
underestimate
for an Instagram post, or you know. So it's a little different being a girl, because I feel like you have to prove yourself and you have to prove your worth. Whereas a guy comes into the industry and they're already loved and taken seriously. So it took so many years of just hard work, dedication, and proving myself through my results to actually be taken seriously as a female in the industry. So it's taken me years, but I finally gotten to the point where the guys finally respect me and take me seriously as a racer.
Oh, good.
Did you have a tendency, did you want to first like dress down and like dress more guy-like, or did it never occur to you?
No.
Were you just like, no,
I'm like, I know I have my hair done, everything. I look very girly, but I was like, I'm going to stay true to myself, you know, because I also want to inspire females and show them like, you don't have to act like a guy or to be a tomboy to fit into the industry. Like, stay true to yourself, stay true to your beliefs, and show the guys that you can kick their butt with your nails done.
thanks.
Heck
Oh,
yeah, that's an awesome message. right there.
We've
Like,
been
there's a
talking
big
about this
tagline.
more, where I'm like, let's start using that to Sierra's advantage, because you can tell the story about your last race. So some guy was like, oh, you have to get a girl to race. Or,
Yeah. Oh.
yeah. So what do you can tell that story.
So I have a funny story. So at the last race, I had a guy approach me and he had injured his leg. So he wanted me to race for him and to salvage his points, because it's based off of like a point system. So he's like, hey, can you drive for me this race? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. I love racing and I'd love to race for you. So we get to the start line and he's telling me all about the point system, and he's like, okay, well, I have to beat this guy in points. So, you know, this is what you have to do. Like, no pressure, but I need you to beat this guy. And so the guy, we're on the starting line and he's starting right in front of me. And he gets out of his car and I could hear him talking to the guy I'm racing for. And he's like, oh yeah, I hired this girl, Sierra Romo. She's gonna race for me. And he goes, you hired a girl to try to beat me?
Oh my God.
And I was like,
were you just like so fueled up?
And so like that gave me so much fuel, because I was like, I have to beat him now. Like, I have to beat him. And so
awesome.
it was a good race. I mean, he was beating me like the first couple of laps, and then finally like the last 4 laps, I beat him. So we get to the finish
Nice.
line, and I was so happy. I mean,
Heck
he
yeah.
finished right on my bumper, but I had beat him. And so it was just the conversations we had. I was like, oh, I definitely heard that on the starting line. And he's like, oh, you heard that? I'm like, yeah. So it was funny. But I mean, you get stuff like that all the time, and you take it and you use it as a fire, you know?
That's a perfect way to kind of funnel that energy.
Yeah.
In. That's great.
I feel like that's what you have to do to be successful, you know? You can't take
Do
it.
you not think just so it feels so much sweeter?
It does.
Like whenever you're just like, yes.
Yep.
In your
Victory
face.
sweet.
In your face.
But I'll keep a smile on my face while I like.
Yeah, exactly. Kill him with kindness.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Okay, so what about, because it seems like another route you might go, and kind of depends on your personality, when you have pressure like that, might be to become more nervous or more fearful of failure, but somehow you seem like you're staying very optimistic with like that kind of can-do attitude.
Yeah.
How is that, do you think that's just built into your personality, or is that something you've cultivated with work, or?
I think I've learned it over time. You know, being a female in the industry, I'm surrounded by guys all the time, and they don't take it easy on me, you know? So I've kind of had to build that like tough girl vibe. And so when I first started in racing, I would definitely like hear those comments, and it would probably intimidate me a lot. But instead I've learned, like, you know, that's not fair to me, because you don't like being beat by a female, or you think of us differently. Like, I'm going to stand up for myself, and I'm going to show you that I can, you know?
Yeah.
So I think I've learned that trait over time.
Are you generally like that in all aspects of life too? Do you have kind of a competitive mentality, no matter
I do.
whether it comes to like school or anything like that?
When it comes from like school to work or prepping on the cars, I do have that mentality, and I've never been like that before until I started racing and getting into it.
Oh, you think it kind of came?
It did come from
that?
racing.
Oh, that's interesting.
What?
And so I think it's kind of like changed me and molded me into who I am today.
The nurture.
Dang, man,
Yes.
forged in the fire, huh?
Yeah.
The era.
like it. I like
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you?
Like badass just came out, just like, oh,
Yeah,
you
it
was
had
in there somewhere.
to.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Does it think it's rubbing off on your friends? Like, are they becoming more like?
I think so. I think they kind of like see my energy, and they see the toughness, and I don't back down to the guys when you hear those comments, and I kind of tell them to do the same. Like, you know, no matter what you're in, whether it's soccer or school or work, like, just because you're a girl, that does not mean that you're any less of a human, you know?
Do you have a couple friend groups that are separate from the racers, or is it pretty much your life is racing?
I do have my best friend from literally elementary school. We've grown up together, middle school, high school, and then she went off to college, but we've remained friends. And then I do have my racing friends. But it's funny because we're all like totally different personalities, from, you know, my high school best friend, my elementary school best friend, and my racing friends.
So what would your friend say has changed about you over the years?
Probably my determination to like be successful. I think over the last few years, it's taken a lot of hard work to get to where I am today. And ultimately, I've made a lot of sacrifices to get to where I am today. And so it's taken a lot of hard work and dedication. And I think that that's changed over the last few years.
In terms of sacrifices, what would you say that they mostly are? Like, is it more time-based, where you're saying like, well, I've missed out on all these opportunities to like go on vacations and hang out with friends because you've been so focused on achieving? Or is it more, I don't know,
I'd say it's time-based. You know, being a young female, you see all your friends going to clubs, day clubs, nightclubs, and going out every night and drinking. And not that I've liked that lifestyle, but I've just never had the opportunity to go and live the typical 21-year-old female
because
life.
you have this laser focus.
I do.
Right?
I'm
That
so
everyone else
focused
is
on
like,
my dreams
one
and
goal.
you know what it
So
takes to make it
interesting,
work. Yeah.
Because you go through most people go through that phase where they're like, oh, I want to explore and see if I like it, but somehow you just liked racing.
Yeah. Literally.
So you were
since-
like, you just knew.
Yeah, I knew that this was going to be my career, and I knew I would do anything it takes to succeed in the industry.
It's always so interesting when
Yeah.
you see the best of the best. People don't see the, like, people always want to be the best of the best, and they have no idea of the time and sacrifice that it takes.
Yeah, the
So
time
they're always like,
sacrifice.
I wish I could be that person. I'm like, and then you show them the schedule that Sierra does, the hours into putting into the fixing the car and everything, and they're like, oh no, maybe I don't want it that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Like in the
It's
gym,
tough,
you're like,
right?
you have to actually, every time you go to eat, you have to think about what you're eating and make the smart
Oh, yeah.
decision over and over again
Yeah.
for like
Same.
1,000 days in a row. And you're like, well, that's why, because it's like
Yeah.
such a hard choice.
Yeah. I mean, you get a lot of comments like, oh, must be nice, or wow, I'd love to be a race car driver. And then you start to tell them, like, okay, well, I've been training 6 days a week. I prep my car. I have to work out in the heat. I have to do this. I have to sacrifice this. And they're like, oh, maybe I don't want to be a race car driver. Like,
Yeah.
it looks nice on
Like
paper,
I
but
wanted to win
then
and get the photo op
Yeah,
at the end, but I didn't
exactly.
want to like.
They don't wanna do the hard
actually
work.
compete it all
Yeah.
out.
Those are
yeah.
the same people asking
That's
for
crazy,
the autographs.
yeah.
And the-
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
So if are there like home movies of you as a child, like playing with a little race car or something, or when did it kind of develop when you thought, okay, like I don't have a choice anymore, like I am going to be a professional race car driver and I'm going to win.
It's funny because I've always grown up around anything with a motor. Like my parents told me when I was little,
Lawnmower?
no, with a motor.
Oh, yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
that
Anything with a
Not a
motor.
gardener.
Yeah.
Not a lawnmower. They didn't put me on a lawnmower.
You're like, all right, you're young enough to do the front yard.
Yeah.
You're like, you know what I want to do is make this thing to go faster and stand on it.
Trying to get your hands on whatever you
Yeah.
can drive first.
Yeah.
You just say you're picking up a Roomba and she's like, puts the cat on it, Anyways.
So yeah, I've grown up around literally anything with a motor. My parents used to tell me they would put me on a snowmobile before I could talk or even, realize what I was doing. But
Oh, yeah, jet skis.
we were literally on the boat, the jet skis, the snowmobiles, little quads. So I think I was just born into a family that loved to go fast.
Yeah.
And, as when I was little, my parents never raced and we didn't really know what racing was, but we were adrenaline junkies and we loved to go fast at anything we did. And we were always very competitive. And so growing up around that kind of family aspect, I naturally had this sense that I was like, okay, I need to take this to the next level. Like this is all fun and I love doing it as a family, but I want to be competitive.
Yeah.
And I want to do this as a career. And so it's crazy how I got into racing because I didn't even know that racing UTVs was a thing. And my mom was like, well, I follow this girl on Instagram and like she does this as a career. And so I looked her up on Instagram and I was like instantly inspired. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm like, this is what I will be.
Have you told her that she inspired you?
Oh yeah,
What- can we look her up?
1000%.
Who's your inspiration?
Sarah Price. It's SARAPRICE. Yeah.
Instagram?
Yeah.
So your mom kind of was
My-
thinking like, you know what? So she kind of was like, this could
Yeah.
be something my daughter would be into.
So she followed her. This was back in 2014, 15.
Yeah.
And so she
Oh yeah,
followed
those are
her.
like your kind of cars, right? The same ones?
Yep.
Same
So
ones.
that's
Okay,
a that's
cool.
a UTV.
Oh, so really inspired you directly into this exact sport.
Literally, like directly inspired me. And
Aw.
so I was like, I need to be like her one day. And she's like my best friend now.
Oh, really?
Literally,
You guys
she's
hang
my
out
best
all the time?
friend. And so her and I, we've gotten to race against each other, and yeah. So
Have you
it's-
beaten her yet, Sarah?
I did. So she actually
Student
hosted
becomes
a
the
race.
master? I
Yeah.
bet she's like proud and like, wow, dang it.
Yeah. So she hosted a race one day, and it was called like the Sarah Price Women's Shootout. And so that was the first time I got to race against her, and I took first.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been an exciting moment.
It was cool because I mean, you have that moment where like this girl was the reason I got into racing.
Yeah.
And she still is my inspiration. And so to be right there racing against her, it was kind of like one of those moments you're like, I made it. Like
Yeah.
I made it.
Was that one of your most favorite moments, beating her as well?
Probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
She's such an awesome human. I love her.
So, like, what does the best of the best look like? So, you're going to have this competition later this month. And if you win it, is that like the World Series or the Super Bowl? Like, are you then the best UTV, right?
So
Is that correct? UTV driver
basically,
in the world?
So you have different series of racing. So the series that I race in is called Best in the Desert.
Okay.
And there's essentially like, I'd say 8 races out of the year. So you go and you race, and depending where you place, say there's anywhere from like 1 person to 60 people. So your point standings goes on like how you finish, whether it's 60th or it's first. So then your points carry on to the next race, and they just tally up. And at the end of the year, whoever has the most points won the championship.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
there's like first, second,
so
and
interesting.
third.
So kind of like in the chess score or something, there's like right now you could pull up a list of where everybody's ranked because you would
Yes.
just total up all their points.
Yes.
So where do you sit on that?
Right now, I'm 6th in points
Whoa.
out of
everyone?
yes. So out of, I'd probably say 60, 65.
Whoa.
That's really.
Yeah,
And are you the number one female?
I am.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
So I am the first
Congrats.
one.
Wow.
And
Oh
in my
gosh.
class, so there's different classes within the series too. So you
Yeah.
can have like the beginners, then there's like what's called unlimited, where you can have like unlimited modifications to your motor.
Uh-huh.
So you can go as fast as you want. But I'm at the highest level of UTV racing, which is called Pro Turbo. So it's basically like all the professionals, and we have a turbo. So our cars are pretty fast, but we're all on the same playing field because our cars, they go the same pace basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that you said you had 9 of these UTVs.
I
Are
do.
they 4 different types of races? Is that why you have so many? Or?
Yeah. So I have a car for desert racing, and then I have a car for short course racing, which I originally started out in, which is like the smaller short races.
Yeah.
And then I have a car for pre-running, so a pre-runner is for your desert races. It's because my races can range from like 250 miles to 650 miles, so basically we'll go out there before the race and what's called pre-run the race and take notes, say on like a rock on the right hand side at mile marker 20. Yeah, so I use that.
But it's too
car.
much distance to memorize, but you just trust your brain to remember
No, so we
everything?
have a GPS that we plug everything into.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
so I use
Cool. So you have like notes that pop up in a certain location?
Yep.
Nice.
So
Okay.
basically my co-driver, which is the guy that sits next to me, he reads the GPS and like reads off all the notes and reads off turns and like basically tells me where to go, where the dangers are, and what's coming up next.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
And
Is this him?
You,
That's my dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aw.
So
Aw.
I'm sure if you go to
and he was a
Instagram-
racer. Yeah.
Yeah. So I race against my dad. So if you go to the next picture, that's my co-driver. To your left.
Look at that little girl. I wish
This
I was
one.
her. She's like, hello.
Yeah, that's my
Oh,
co-driver.
nice.
He sits right beside me and he tells me where to go, and it takes a lot of trust.
Yeah.
Because especially in dust, you
Oh,
can't see
man.
where you're going, so
Yeah.
you rely specifically on your co-driver to tell you where to go.
Could
Aw.
definitely see how important that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you two really need to be on the same page with everything.
Yeah,
But I guess over the years, you've sort of forged that.
yeah. I
kind of-
mean, he's been my co-driver for
friendship.
4 years now. So
Yeah. It seems like the best racers in this must have that connection with somebody to be able to communicate
Yeah.
correctly.
definitely.
Do you name all your,
personalities.
like some people name cars? Do you name them all?
I do. I
Oh,
name my
what's the one
cars.
that you're going to race on this next trip?
That one's called Henry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Not expecting that. I thought it was
Yeah.
gonna be like some hardcore.
no, so
yeah, me too. I was
know.
like death or win or
Good
something.
old
Like, that's just-
trusty
good old
Henry.
Henry. No, so my co-driver, he thinks it's so funny to name all of our cars basically like funny names, like kind of like old man names. Like we
Don't
have
you want an intimidating name?
You do, but he thinks it's funny. So I mean, we call that one Henry, and then my other one
That's all right. If
with
they underestimate you, they'll
Yeah.
get it in the end.
so then the cheetah one is called Henrito. So it's like a basically
Henrito.
smaller version of Henry.
Dude.
Yeah, and then I have Roxanne, and
What was the first one that you named?
she was called Legs for some reason.
Legs?
Yeah.
Legs, okay.
They're just random names, okay? So it's not anything intimidating like you'd expect.
Dylan calls
Like,
his
this is-
Tesla Toby.
Yeah.
Toby, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like this is your tactic though. It's just like, it's just little
Oh,
old me
sorry,
and
Libby.
Henry,
Yeah.
and then we win.
And then, yeah, and then
Yeah, I
me
hope
and
my
Henry
eyelashes
won.
are good. My nails are done, and then
It's a good strategy.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so what sacrifices do you anticipate needing to make before you achieve your goals? Like, how many more races do you think you need to get to, and how much more time could it possibly take, or where do you see your like long-term roadmap leading you in the next kind of 5 or 10 years to
Long term, I think
the
my,
legacy of?
my ultimate goal is to be in a trophy truck, which is a 4-wheel drive, big truck. They do 160 through the desert.
Let me look
And
those up. Let's see what they look like.
yeah, let's pull a picture. But
Whoa, this is huge.
yeah,
Okay, what's that? A Hummer?
like that. So that's a trophy
Monster
truck.
truck? Oh man.
So you want to eventually race in that whole division?
Yes. So that's a different class. That's called
But
the
you
trophy
could right
truck
now
class.
if you bought the car, or you actually have to earn your way through this into it.
You can buy the car. Yeah.
But those
So
are
that's-
what, like $1 million?
Yeah, $1 million
geez,
plus.
okay.
So it
Yeah.
takes a lot
So
of
not
money.
easy. Yeah.
And
Oh, you weren't joking.
oh yeah, no, it's
Wow.
it's craziness. But those guys, they are insane, and those trucks do like anywhere from 100 to 160 through the desert.
Oh my.
And so they're
gosh.
just flying through the desert. I mean, when you pull up videos of trophy trucks, like
Yeah,
it's
pull some up.
it's crazy. But that's my ultimate goal, is to get to that level. And in order to get to that level, it takes a lot of sponsorship money to, afford something like
Right.
that.
So you got to kind of earn your way through the system.
You do, yeah. And again, that takes a lot of hard work and dedication.
Right, because the sponsor wants to make sure that they're paying for somebody
They're-
who's got a lot of history
Yeah.
and is going to be probably
Yeah, who's put in the work over time and is going to take it seriously. Because, essentially, if they're paying for you to race, they want to make sure that you're 100% dedicated to succeeding.
yeah.
Wow.
And in order to do that, you can't be out partying every weekend. You basically just
I see what
have
you
to
mean.
have
so you have to
your-
really prove, like, I'm not
really
just a
prove-
fair weather
yeah.
fan on this thing. I'm
Yeah.
going to be in it for a long time.
Yeah,
And stay focused.
yeah. So that's a trophy track.
That's fast.
that's
Look at
definitely-
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely
Yeah.
awesome.
That suspension
Crazy.
and that is insane.
Yeah.
But
That'll
that's
be
that's
you.
so, that's
Whoa, yeah, like, there goes Sierra in the future.
So basically, if
definitely
you see me
later.
in one of
One of those.
those, just know like
You've made it.
I've made it. That's
Heck
that's
yeah.
my dream.
But that's the frustrating thing is like you could be the best racer there, but if you don't have that backing,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that takes a lot of money.
Takes a lot of skill, a lot of money.
How
Well,
would
that's why they're usually sponsored by the big names like
It's
Monster,
Monster.
Red Bull,
Oh,
like
cool,
all
yeah.
the big
Yeah.
names.
Look at him going down that thing. That's awesome. So how good at fixing a car are you? Or is it pretty much on your team to always, that crew that follows you to fix your car? Or, like, are you a car engine girl too? Or
So,
just a car
My
racer?
dad and I are the only ones that prep our car. I mean, we have some people like my co-driver come in and my best friend, they come in towards like the end and help us out a little bit, but it's
Mhm.
majority of my dad and I who take the car apart and put it back together.
Oh, prepping it means a full assembly?
Yeah. So basically when you prep your car, you want to make sure that all your parts are fresh
What?
and can
What-
withstand those miles again.
What's the most pieces that Henry's ever been in?
Oh my gosh. Henry can be in like basically like bare frame. Like like literally right now my car has no motor, no transmission. So we're putting everything brand
Wait,
new.
your race is later this month?
Yeah, in 3
Oh.
weeks.
Okay. And
Coming
you and your dad will assemble all of Henry by
Yes. Yeah. So my
Okay.
dad and
Wow,
I
okay, so you really know that car. You
Yes.
know all the pieces
my
of
dad
it.
and I know the ins and outs of every bolt, every nut,
Like if
every
you
part.
so if you closed your eyes, you could imagine putting it all together in your head?
Yeah. I mean, not as good as my
Whoa.
dad. My dad can literally do it in his sleep, and you could pull off a bolt out of the car, and he tells you where it goes and like how tight to tighten the bolt. Like he's
So
he's
cool.
crazy.
Like
But-
if we just had a
man.
box and we're like held up a screw, you'd be like, I know exactly where that goes.
Literally, I love playing that game with him. Like I'll go
Really?
to our parts shelf and I'll pick up a baggie of bolts and like, Dad, where does this go? And he's like, oh, that's the engine below this, that, and I'm like, okay,
Oh
good
my
job.
gosh.
That's so impressive.
That's what
I'm
you guys
like,
do at dinner?
I
Yeah.
think if
That's your
like
family
if
game
I'm
night.
prepping for a running race, I'm like 3 weeks out. I'm like, right, okay, are my sneakers okay? And you're like, okay, so I
Yeah.
just gotta build my whole car. I'm like,
It's not built
Yeah,
yet.
well, that's I feel like that's how you are with muscles. And like something in this part of me aches, and you're like, oh, it must be this muscle connected to this thing, and if you touch this thing, it will work.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
like the way
I
the
can
body
change the
comes
tire,
together.
but as far as the rest goes, I'll just be like, oh, you just have to point to me, which I would have no idea.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
Same.
different with you because I tell you like, oh, I use this muscle, and you're like, okay, well, we need to do these 20 exercises to strengthen this muscle. And I'm like, what? Like this is
Like, how could
Chinese
those-
for me.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
still
So-
prepping
Me
you
too.
months ahead. I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm having the panic attack because I'm just like, Sarah, what do you mean the car's not
I know,
built?
that
Like,
is
but-
crazy.
Yeah.
You gotta build
come in.
it.
'Cause
Nice.
so you know Henry better than your own body.
Yeah, literally.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, you spent more time thinking about how the car goes together than how your muscles and bones fit.
definitely.
Yeah, that's the way. That's why you outsource that thinking to
That's why I have Sarah, because she does the
her.
other.
She thinks about the body. Yeah, me
She
too.
thinks
Oh, I
about
hear
my
you, man.
body and what muscles I need to strengthen.
Now you're stressing me about. I'm like, what do you mean the car? Like, I need to have this prep way for it.
I know. Every time I see her, she's like, "What do you mean the car's in parts?" I'm like, "Yeah, Sarah. Like, we got 3 weeks. I mean, we'll put it together and go testing." And she's like, "It's 3 weeks away. Like, what do you mean?" Like freaking out. I'm like, "No, this is normal."
I know,
like,
because you know.
yeah.
Oh yeah, so walk me through from here until 3 weeks, pretty much day by day, what's gonna happen with both the assembly to the car and the way you're gonna be trained and the mentality and diet and the whole thing. Like, what's gonna happen?
So the next 3 weeks, it's like complete focus on race day. So I wake up, I go to the gym where I train with Sarah, and then I come home and we usually prep the race car. We'll spend a few hours putting it back together, making sure everything's good to go, and then kind of just relax towards the end of the night or start planning the race and planning like fuel stops, where we're gonna sleep at the end of the race. I mean, all those little details. We spend weeks and weeks planning on those types of things.
So this will be
So-
you and your parents usually, or also your co-navigator?
Yeah,
or
my
you'll just-
co-driver, my mom, my dad, we all sit down and like have a meeting of like, okay, this person is going to do this person is going to change my tire, this person's going to put fuel in the car.
The assigned task.
So
Wow.
yeah, so it's like
Checklists?
like a checklist. Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah.
we
have
spend
those.
the next
Yeah.
3 weeks
We have that.
figuring everything out and making sure every little detail is planned out. So yeah, basically training.
Is that really where the winners come from? Is the people who prep the
Yeah.
best kind of?
So
Like,
basically we say like the race is won in the garage. That's like our biggest saying in racing, because if your pit crew is not on point and your car is not on point, like you'll never make it to the finish line. So you have
to prepare for all these variables.
you
Yeah, and
prepare for
unknowns.
everything beforehand before even getting to the start line, because essentially like when you hit the start line, like it's all out of your hands at that
Yeah.
point. It's like it's based on how much work you put in the months leading up to the race. It'll decipher how
That's
your race
interesting.
goes.
So like when that guy was like, "Oh, you have me racing a girl," in your head you're thinking, "Well, I'm so prepared that I'm already I'm already gonna win because
Yeah.
I just know that I have this great team and
Yeah.
we've thought through all the turns and
Yeah, literally. And you
we've
have
prepped
to
over and over again and we have a system down."
Yeah. You have to have that mentality of knowing like, okay, I spent the last few months making sure my car was perfect. I spent the last few months making sure my body was ready for this race. So you come into a race with that attitude, like I did everything I possibly could, and now it's just me and the race car, and like we're gonna
Wow.
make this work.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you think when you get to that
That's so cool.
whole other level, will you be able to relinquish some control of, because you're so used to prepping the car, when you get to that whole other level, you have to have a crew of like 18.
Yeah.
So
It's-
I'm like, I always wonder if how that would be
Yeah,
to
it's
take
true,
it to
the
that next level
outsource.
of you not being
Oh,
the
yeah.
one
Do you
in
have
control.
Do you think you have control issues? Like, is it going to be hard to trust others, or
I think
are you
it'll
built for that too?
I think it'll be nice to one day kind of hand things off to, say, a team to kind of prep the car, and because it's a lot of work. And
Yeah.
most teams, they hire people to come in and prep their car, but then you also have the risk of, did they tighten that
Yeah,
bolt?
for sure. If
Did
you want to
they-
do it right.
Yeah,
do it yourself.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's why my dad and I, we do everything. But I guess when you get to that whole other level, you can't be out there working on your own car,
Mhm.
you know? So I think one day it'll be good to kind of hand things off a little bit, but I'm sure I'll still be right
That'll be
there, like
interesting,
making
yeah.
sure.
'Cause that might be a different skill to grow into, which is how to, like, they say like what gets you here won't get you there, because it's kind
Yeah.
of, but you can grow into it. I mean,
Yeah,
but you'll just
I
have to
mean,
keep that growth mindset and then say,
you-
all right, now it's about building a team of people I trust instead
Yeah.
of doing it until I trust it.
Yeah. I mean, you learn different skills every day, especially in racing. So
Yeah.
I'm curious what different skills I'll pick
So
up
did
along
your
the way.
dad and so in your family, your dad's the only racer besides you?
So my dad and I race against each other currently. My mom used to race, but she retired.
Oh, your mom was a racer
My
in the
mom-
UTV.
Yes. So at
Oh,
one point, my
interesting. Oh,
mom,
wow.
my dad, and I were all racing against each other. So it was pure chaos. Like I can't even explain what
Can you
that was
imagine
like.
dinner afterwards and they're just like, I can't believe what you did on turn 5.
They
You're
get
like,
really
I needed to
awkward.
do what I needed to do,
Yeah,
Mom.
literally.
You're like, you're my daughter.
I gotta win this.
It's so funny because
And your
my dad and
dad-
I, when we race against each other now, my mom's like, we're so competitive. And I mean, we're at the highest level of UTV racing. So it's like serious. So we go out there. I'm like, Dad, I know you're my dad, but once the helmet comes on, you're not my dad. And he's like, okay, same to you. Like, game game on. I'll see you at the finish line. And I'm like, okay. So my mom, like, I'll go on the radio
my
and I'll be
gosh.
like, Mom, like, Dad just hit me. And she'll be like, I swear to God, if you guys hit each other, if you break, don't come home. You're walking home. Like, it's so funny. And like, so you come into like a pit stop and there's all these
so
other teams
awesome.
lined up. And so they can hear our conversations. And so we get to the finish line and everyone's like, you and your dad were like talking about dinner or talking about hitting each other. And I'm like,
you're on the
that's casual.
over the radios.
We're on the same radio channel.
So in the UTV, there's no age cutoff. So it really can be all three of you.
Yeah.
It can be like Romo first, Romo second,
Yeah.
Romo third.
Literally.
And then like, which ones? What's the first names? Like,
yeah.
you know?
So there's no age limit when it comes to our class. I mean, you have to be, I think it's 15 to race in my class.
Yeah, but at this point, you and your family can all be in it
Yeah.
together.
So we can all race against each other.
Do you have
And we
sisters or brothers?
I have a sister. Yeah.
You think she's gonna be in there with you too?
No. So
Or she was like, nope.
She's older than me. We're 8 years apart. And
Okay.
so
she's already determined it's not her life.
she has her job. She has her husband, her house, and then now 2 kids and a third on the way. So
Okay.
she's like, I'm
So
good.
not joining now.
Yeah. She's like, I'm a mom. I can't risk getting hurt.
Yeah, I hear
So
that.
leave the rest up to you crazies, you know, going like,
Literally.
Yeah. I could see that. There's always one. My whole family was teachers, and I was like, I don't know what I want to be, but I know I don't want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
So I just felt like
Be a good
everyone, my
teacher,
uncle,
Dylan.
my aunt, my dad, my mom, I was like, it's too much.
Yeah.
So the car will come together how many days before the race starts?
So the car will be together probably
Henry.
a week. Henry, yeah.
Yeah.
Henry will be
We're on first
together.
name basis now with your car, so it's fine.
I love it. Probably a week before the race, the car will be 100% ready to go. And then for the next week leading up until the race, we take it out into the desert and basically just put miles on it,
Okay, so
making
all your
sure-
desk strategy will be done. Everyone will know where they're supposed to be, who's doing what with like giving
Yeah.
you water, and you
So-
said turkey and everything during your 1
Yeah.
minute break.
So basically all that's going to be planned
Yeah.
out in the next 2 weeks. And so up until a week before the race, then that's like the serious time when we test the car, make sure everything's good to go. Up until like a few days before the race, we wash it, tuck it away in the garage, make sure it's good to go. And then the pit crew starts coming in from out of town. And then we go over with them like, hey, you know, on paper, we have you here doing this and you here doing this. So we kind of make sure everybody knows their jobs. We go over it. Sometimes we'll practice with them, making sure that they know what they're doing.
Okay,
So-
and then this
Nice.
particular race, where is it going to start at?
So it starts like an hour and a half outside of Vegas.
Okay.
It's called, I don't know if you guys know the town of Beatty, Nevada, like
No,
tiny,
you can
tiny
bring it
little
up on,
town.
bring it up on the
What
map
was
if
it?
you
What
want.
was it?
Beatty, Beatty.
Do they do the shotgun thing? Like,
Why?
is that how it starts?
No.
Or they go ding,
You get
ding,
a
ding?
green light.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just like
Yeah, there you go.
like Mario
Beatty,
Kart.
Nevada. So
small town.
yeah, it's tiny little town.
You guys are going to dominate that whole little town.
We do.
Nice.
They get so
Guys come
excited when
into
we come
town.
into town
That's-
because they
that's
hit like
awesome.
record
I bet.
sales at the gas station.
Yeah, for
Like-
sure. And everybody's like,
Yeah, so basically it'll start around there, and then we'll finish in Tonopah, Nevada. It's a little bit bigger than Beatty, but still like a
Yeah, I know
tiny little.
Tonopah.
can you map the two on I'm just curious on like a Google map.
Oh.
So then you're going to start, and then 14 hours later, you're finally going to get to the destination, and then everybody will have their points accumulated, and then those points go to your overall points to keep,
At the end of the year.
yeah,
Yep.
to see where
For-
you're like at.
So basically, you want to
Oh,
be
are you
first,
in-
second, or
do you
third.
feel like you're in striking distance at first?
I
Or-
am. It's crazy with racing because you just never know what can happen because first
Right.
place can crash and he's out of points at that point because he didn't finish the race. And
Mm.
when you don't finish a race, it takes a huge toll on your points. So say first
yeah,
place.
or if it takes them a long time to fix it
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, so it's crazy because any race, there's so much that can happen, so much that can change the points.
Hmm.
So I feel like
Have you, throughout
gotta
history, have you ever had a time where you lost a lot of points at just a moment like of bad luck? And how did you handle that? If so?
yeah, I mean that's definitely
Like a
happened
car, have you had a
before.
car piece break that you didn't have a replacement for quickly?
Yeah,
Like your last race, you had that issue just like 2 miles before the finishing line.
oh yeah.
2 miles? Okay,
So-
yeah. Tell me this story. What
So
piece
my
was
la-
it, and how did you
Oh my
mentally
gosh, that
handle
was
this?
heartbreaking. So my last
Oh.
race was 300 miles, and I was at mile 298, and we have basically what's
Oh
called
no,
a
Henry, just hang
belt.
together for
There.
3 more
Henry
miles.
could not stay together for 2 more miles.
Oh no.
So we have what's called a belt that drives the car, and when it gets too hot, it snaps. And so I could tell I have like this little basically temperature reading that tells me.
Yeah.
And I could tell it was getting too hot, but I was like, Henry, like just keep it together for 2 more miles. Like you got this.
Oh no.
And yeah,
But that
so
seems like a piece you would have prepared for. This belt, right?
Yeah.
If it breaks.
yeah.
did
So we had extra in the car,
but
but
it still
yeah.
took too
but it
many
still
points off your
took
thing.
too long. And I was 4th place coming into the finish line, and I finished, I think, 10, 11.
Do you have an estimate of how many points you've missed out on? Like, would you be in?
I don't know the exact standings, but I think I would probably be in like 4th or 5th if
Okay.
that didn't happen. So it's a little bit
Bit of
heartbreaking.
6th, okay.
So
But
when you know
that's
the hardcore competitiveness, and I text Sarah and she was like, I was gonna push it, Sarah. I was like,
That's what you said to her?
Yeah.
I was just gonna push it over the finishing line. I'm like, I believe it.
Do you,
Yeah.
do you blow your top? You like kick dirt and
I was-
scream and stuff?
I
Or,
was
like, how did
mad.
you handle it?
I was very angry because I was 2 miles from the finish and I was in 4th place. Like
Did you see a car drive by you?
there was probably like 6 cars that drove by me. And
Damn.
my co-driver, I got out of the car and I'm like, let's push the car. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I've been training with Sarah. Like, we can push this car across the finish line. Like, I don't care if you don't want to. I'm going to push the car. And he looked at me like I was crazy. But I'm like, I will do whatever it takes to
Like-
get the car across the finish line right now.
Nice.
I'm like, I don't care. But
2
Yeah.
miles, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
You
it's
could
only
almost
2
run
miles.
It. Yeah, it's,
You
but
go
you're right.
That's nothing.
298 miles and then break. So of course I'm like, 2 more miles. Let's go. Like, let's start pushing.
Gotcha. But instead, you just waited for your crew and dealt with the anger.
Yeah.
and
I
got
mean,
the belt replaced as fast as possible.
yeah. And I basically told myself, I was like, I drove as hard as I could. I know I did exactly what I had to do.
And sometimes the car's
And
just
sometimes it
be
just,
when it
it
happens.
can't handle it.
Happens.
And I'm like, we'll get him at the next one. It is what it is. You got to keep your head high and, you know, do what it takes to fix that part and make sure it doesn't happen for the next race. So it kind of like motivates you to figure it out and make sure, put your head down and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's a great sign of like a true athlete is when there was always that famous quote by Michael Jordan. He said, I never judged myself on my wins. It was always on my losses,
That is so true.
like, or any of my
Yeah.
failures. And it's like, that's the test of how someone, if they feel, and how then they can make it better for the next one.
Yeah, I mean, because you're at your lowest when you lose something like that. So it's like what you
Yeah.
do with it really tells how you are as a person or your personality. And some people will take it and be like, oh, you know, I'm not good enough. I can't do, I'm too far in points. And for me, I'm like, no, you use that as energy and fuel for the next race to be better and to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I think that's a
Yeah.
huge part in being successful.
So when you started training her, because I know you're pretty selective with your clients, was it the mentality that she had where you thought, okay, I want to train a winner, kind of?
Yeah, well, I
Or what have
actually
you
got-
noticed in her personality during training?
Sierra referred through James, who's another race car driver.
Yep, James.
Uh-huh.
Veteran of the
James.
podcast, yeah.
Yeah,
Out of the 9
and,
episodes we've done.
He just said to me, he was like, instantly, you're going to click with Sierra. And I was like, professional athlete? Yes, thank you very much. And you can kind of tell within like first 5 minutes, there's people that like to do things, or there's people that are going to give you 100.
Like they don't have a choice but
Yeah.
to win. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
and
in
I was
them.
like, first 5 minutes with Sierra, that was like one of my first questions. I said, what is your overall goal? And without even a blink, world champion.
That's what you said?
Yeah.
Do you like world champion?
We're going to the top.
Without even like a second thought. So I was just like, okay. And I believe her. 100%.
Yeah. And what's cool is Sarah's like, okay, well, what do we have to do to get there? Like, what steps do you need to take? And how can I help you? How can I, get you there? And I'm like, okay, we're a team
That's
now.
awesome.
Like, we're
yeah,
going to
for
get
sure.
to the
Just
top.
just like your co-driver
I'll
and
just,
your
yeah,
parents.
I'll be there in the pit crew, just
Dude,
being like,
everybody
I don't
has
know,
their
I just
thing.
hold a spanner. I don't know what this is
You've
for.
got 2 minutes to put turkey and water in her mouth.
Yeah.
Everyone does their part.
Yeah. So it takes a lot of people to succeed. And I couldn't do it without my parents
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
Sarah and my pit crew and my co-driver. And people don't realize how much it takes a village to get where I am.
Okay, so what's the most useless thing that you've ever bought for your car?
Oh my gosh. This is
Like,
funny.
yeah, we're all ready for it.
So I didn't buy it, but my mom bought it. She's kind of like one of those overprotective mothers, like totally understandable because I'm in the desert, the middle of the desert from sunrise to sunset. And so she loves to like plan and make sure I'm taken care of.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
she's
Natural
like,
mother instinct. Gotcha.
yeah, she has a very motherly
Race car
instinct.
daughter,
And
race
so
car mother.
she, for my big race I had in August, it was called Vegas to Reno, and it's 550 miles, and you're basically
Wow, that's
racing
long.
from Vegas to Reno.
Jeez.
Wow.
And so, you know, from sun up to sunset, and when you start to get towards Reno, it gets kind of cold. Like not
It does
really
snow.
cold because you're in August, but it's still like 60s, 70s. And so she's like, I found this for you at Walmart. It's a metal blanket. And I'm like, Mom, I'm not putting a metal blanket in my
What?
race car.
Metal
And
Can you
blanket?
check that out on Walmart's website?
yeah, so it's like a metal blanket, and it's
like a chain blanket?
it's I never opened
Doesn't
it.
seem very warm.
I've never opened it, so I don't know how it works, but like I think it
Wow, that
reflects
really
off the
is
sun.
the most useless thing I've
I've
ever
never
heard. Like,
used it, so I'd say it's pretty useless, but
I've never even heard of this. So.
yeah.
Maggie, you look up.
So-
Go to Walmart. See
Look
if they have
up like a metal blanket.
Like a weighted blanket?
Yes,
Is that the way to
like
think about
Oh,
it?
like,
like-
this.
Like this.
Oh.
A survival
yeah.
rescue
Oh, gotcha.
blanket.
Like if you
The
drive through a
emergency-
fire,
yeah.
you can like put this on and the fire won't burn you.
I know.
Yeah, or it keeps you warm, or
Yeah.
like
So it's one of those survival blankets. Like if you get
Yeah.
caught up a mountain.
yes,
But you'd
literally.
have to unpack that thing with one hand, right? Or you're just your co-driver would be like, place it over me. Like, okay.
Yeah. But I'm like, Mom, if I'm broken down, I'm not gonna think to pull out my metal blanket. But you know what? It's the
Yeah,
thought that
that's
counts.
funny.
I appreciate
It's
it.
like, it's, no.
And I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna get cold. It's still 70 degrees outside, but it is what it is. I'm like, I'll still put it in the race car for you.
What about
Aw.
decoratively? Any stickers you've ever put on, Henry, that you regret?
No,
Or they're all cool?
I think I mean, all the stickers that go on my race car, they're all sponsors who pay for my racing and
Oh,
help
gotcha. They're
me.
brands.
They're
It's not,
brands.
you don't just have like a flaming
I don't just
skull
have a
or
smiley
something.
face or something dumb. You
I
know?
forgot. That's important real estate. Yeah,
No,
you don't just have
yeah,
like...
so-
Hashtag in it to win it.
Yeah. So they're all
Oh, gotcha.
pretty useful. But I mean, if you look at my race car, they're all cheetah print and
Yeah, you love
Nice.
the cheetah print, huh? That's
I-
your brand. Where did that come from? Something as a kid? Or
That's so
where's the
cool.
first...
you know, I honestly think it
What's the name
came
of your
from
first car? The Legs? Legs had it?
Legs. Yes.
Yeah, Legs had...
Literally my first race car from till now, I've always had cheetah print. And I think it came from being in a male dominated industry. I had to show these guys like
yeah, you're like...
I'm girly. Like this is me. I am not a tomboy, and I'm gonna embrace every second of that. And I think I just took cheetah print and made it my thing.
What's your opinion on
So
car
cool.
lashes?
You know, I've had a lot of people ask me like, why don't you have car lashes? And I forget to order them. Like I need
Oh,
car
but you might-
lashes.
but you're willing-
I
you're
need
willing to
just
rock
go
it.
on Amazon and purchase them because I need car lashes.
That really would make your car so unique.
I think it's the perfect touch that Henry needs.
Oh,
Yeah.
Can you imagine
Yes.
those things?
We're
Don't
gonna
you
buy
think? Can you imagine when they look in the
Buy
rear
now.
view mirror and see
This
that
would
thing
be-
coming up on them?
the ultimate insult to entry. If like you
Oh,
meet
definitely.
all the guys and they look at and you just pull up in your car has car lashes and like
Or I'm passing you and guys are like, what the? Like, do
I
a
know.
double take? Like, is that an eyelash?
That is amazing. You see that thing coming up on her?
Oh, yeah.
I just keep thinking of like the Formula One, like going past that checkered flag and,
And
like
they're
your-
just like,
the blink and stuff. Like,
waving.
Yes, definitely. Those would not be useless. Those would be very useful for
Very
insulting
oh,
the
those
car
are
in front of you.
useful.
The
For
most
insulting the
useful.
car that you pass.
I need the car lashes. Oh,
You
they
get a
have
bright
pink ones.
pink one.
Oh, yep. There you go.
Yeah.
I was saying, Sarah, how the guys love whenever you bring your eyelash brush.
Oh, yeah.
What their
so-
response is to that?
See, that's not useless. I love my
But
eyelash
you can't
brush.
do makeup on those. You looks like they're too bumpy, right? Or do you try to in the
So,
rearview mirror fix your eyelash?
You know, sometimes my eyelashes, they'll get a little droopy or like I'll get one in my eye. And so I pull into the pit stop where I'm getting gas.
But
and
you
I'll-
only have 2 minutes in the pit stop.
Yeah, so I'll
But you need
pull-
to eat and drink water. But you'll
It's-
find time for the
I'll
eyelash.
find time. I'll pull it out, fix them up, and everyone's like, "Are you really brushing your eyelashes right now?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am." Like, I'll find time for it.
That's awesome.
Or even like when we're leaving the pit, like I'll pull it out and do it real quick. Like,
And replacement nails. Quickly fix those.
Yeah. Fill it real quick.
She pulls up and just that hand comes out the window, and it's like, do what you can. The nail
My
team
curl
runs
is
up.
falling. I need you to
I
fix
feel like
my
the
curls.
pit crew comes over and freshens you up a little bit.
Could you imagine like a guy's just running over to the car and they're all painting my nails real quick? Like, how
That's
funny
awesome.
that would
I
be.
can
That'll
just see
be-
it's like those road
And you
rage
still
people,
beat them.
and you blow them a kiss. They're like all your other guys that you're racing against. They're like,
that
what
would be
the-
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm dying.
They're like
She's
jumping over
brushing
each
her
other. Like,
eyelashes.
we've only got
Are you
one
kidding
nail. Get the
me?"
nails done. We've got 5 minutes.
That would be epic.
Yeah.
My pit crew is so used to it.
Dude,
too.
might as well once you get to the top, once you're in that big truck and the hand
Yeah.
comes out. It'd
Why
be great.
not?
Just the 2 hands and they're fixing you up.
That's how you know I made it when I'm
Yeah.
getting my manicure in my truck.
Okay, so I'm curious. Talk to me about probably mostly sound, but I'm curious when you're driving, sounds, smells, things that are not just your sight. Like, what are you listening for? Like, what's the best and worst sounds you can hear? Or like, how close to Henry's kind of engine sounds and smells are you? Like, are you able to decipher when the car is on the edge?
It's hard because in my helmet I actually have what's called like an ear cup. So I tried to like drown out that sound.
You don't
because
want to
it's-
listen to the engine?
No, it's too loud and I have to be listening to my co-driver and like listening to every call that he's
Oh, so he's
saying.
not talking to you, he's radioing?
No, he's talking to
Oh.
me, but like through my helmet.
Yeah.
So I have to be able to like hear him and really focus and tune in into like what he's
'cause you
saying.
actually have to listen to
I have to like
to the
listen,
directions so
yeah,
much.
and like be aware of what he's saying. So I use the earmuffs to like really listen to what he's saying and to drown out the motor sounds.
Yeah.
Even though I'd love to listen to the motor like all day long, but like
But no, you can't. That'll
You
take you
can't.
off. You need to be listening
yeah,
to
you
like the
have to
directions.
be like
yeah.
100% focused. And so I would love to listen to the motor, but I try to
Okay.
drown it out during the race so I could focus on exactly what my co-driver.
Okay, so like when Henry's thing snapped, you were kind of taken by surprise. It's not like you started to hear it.
No,
a
but
few
I could
minutes before.
see like the temperature gauge.
Yeah.
Like I can see the gauges and like what temperatures are good, what temperatures are bad, like what's starting to overheat. So like I can visualize everything, like see what's going on with the car.
But the gauges are your main way to read what's going on.
Yeah, the gauges mostly, and I can also feel what's going on with the car too.
Yeah.
But not really hear what's going on most of the
Okay.
time. Yeah.
What other senses? Taste doesn't mean anything. Smell,
No.
maybe do you smell?
Smell. Yeah, you can smell the belt when it's starting to like break or get too hot. You can smell it.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can use your smell, use your sight, obviously, hearing just a little bit, but mostly you feel and see what's going on.
Yeah, I can see that. We had, do you know where the phrase "fly by the seat of your pants" comes from? we learned this on an
Here we
earlier
go again,
podcast,
Dylan.
but yeah, it was it actually came from pilots back before there were like many instruments, and they would go into clouds, and essentially they could just tell if the plane was upright or not by the seat of their pants, because they're just like sitting and they're like, I know when I'm tilting or going forward, but they can't see anything because they're in a cloud. Yeah, and now people say like I'm flying by the seat of my pants, but I didn't realize it actually came from.
But nobody actually knows what
Yeah,
it means.
well, because
like,
now we don't fly by the seat of our
Yeah.
pants. But that was like at some point, some pilots were like, "I better be straight," and I can tell just by the way my
That-
butt's sitting in the seat.
I was really
Wow.
surprised at that when I first had that happen.
Yeah.
When we were flying and in the clouds, just in the smaller plane, and I thought we were straight. And came out of the clouds and we were at like a 45-degree bank. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't even know.
yeah.
So yeah, it's
crazy.
pretty confusing.
All right, what about race car movies or TV shows or YouTube videos? What's the like most inspirational race car media that you ever had? You've ever seen?
Have you guys seen The Art of Racing in the Rain?
No, check it. Art of Racing in the Rain.
Yeah, it is such a good movie. It's about like a dog. And
Oh, I love it already.
the guy is a race car driver, and the dog has grown up around racing and like watches this guy race, and then I don't want to spoil it, but like the dog passes away.
You don't want to spoil it.
I don't want to spoil
But
it.
then
The
you
dog
say
passes
the
away.
dog
I was gonna watch it, man.
passes away. That cute little
Nah,
thing.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, you knew that was going to be a thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's a
oh,
There's
dog
in the
I
movie.
mean, I
film,
don't
they're
want
gonna
to
die.
spoil it, but Darth Vader is Luke's dad. I mean, I
Wait,
should
what?
Let you know.
I haven't seen Star Wars, man. Come on. Oh, look how cute that doggy is.
So you guys
Aw.
have to watch it.
Yeah.
Like, it is such a good movie.
Do your family have? Do you have a little dog that travels with you sometimes for fun? Or?
Oh, we have 4
I mean,
dogs, and they go to the races.
Yeah, just Just
like,
to be in the car sometimes
to-
when you're cracking, when you're prepping the car or
if I'm
whatever.
prepping the car, like they'll come into the garage, or if I have to
Yeah.
go around the street, I'll take the dog. But yeah, it's not really inspiring, but like this is one of my favorite racing movies because like the dog watches him and like he loves racing too.
Yeah.
And so I think about my dogs. And I'm like,
so
what
it
if
has
they
kind
love
of that
racing?
family connection.
Yeah, I mean they do it as a family too.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
It
It
is-
reminds me of my family.
It is
Aw.
interesting how racing is a passion, but it's also a way you feel connected to your family. So it's got
yeah.
two different levels
Yeah.
to your life. And I could see
Mhm.
why that ingrains in maybe deeper than somebody who's like the only person in their family who loves
without
racing.
doubt.
Yeah, I mean, my family and I, we do everything together. I mean, if my dad and I are prepping in the shop, my mom will come in and she'll sit there with the dogs and
Yeah.
just hang out and talk to us while we're prepping the cars. And everything we do is just family based.
Yeah.
We go to the lake, we go snowmobiling, we prep the cars.
So is it just
together.
a given that your kids will, if you have kids, you're just gonna start them
They're gonna be
in like race
racing.
car? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
They're going to be sleeping in the back of the race car.
They
as
will
you're
Do
doing
be.
it.
you exclusively date race car drivers?
I do. It's weird, like not on
Okay,
purpose, but
yeah.
like I just have a thing for people who race as
Yeah.
well. It's so weird. And
Right,
like,
you have little race babies,
Yeah, it
and
just
a
makes
race
sense.
husband,
it
and
makes
like your
sense,
family.
Preferably
Yeah.
somebody that I can race against, because I'm competitive. So it's like, let's go out and race against each other.
Maybe one last question. Do you have any rituals that are kind of, do you do like 10 minutes beforehand? Do you have a certain song you love to play, or any kind of fun rituals that make your rhythm kind of better?
I do. Every race, I cannot start my race without something from my mom. So it has to be something that she finds like a week leading up to the race.
Steel
And-
blanket or whatever it is. Like, thanks, Mom.
Yeah,
blanket.
exactly. But no, usually it's like a penny. She always finds a penny, like
Oh, okay.
a few days before, like leading up to the race. And so
Oh, and
we
feels
just-
like it's a good luck token?
Yeah, so she calls it my
Interesting.
lucky penny, and like it keeps me safe. And I believe it like has literally kept me safe over the last few years. And so
Wait, same penny? Or
no,
you get a new,
she
she
finds-
always finds
she
something.
finds
It can
something
be different.
new every single race, and it's always a new penny. So like after I get done with the race, I have this like huge collection of pennies from my mom, and like sometimes she doesn't
That's
find
cool.
a penny. Like one time it was a rubber duck. And so she's like, I found this rubber duck on the floor, like going into the grocery store. So she's like, here it is. And so
Where do these things sit? Do you have
So
a
I
glove?
have-
Do you have a glove box?
I have door bags that keep
Oh.
like all of our spare tools and parts and stuff.
So
And
you
so
throw the rubber duck
I throw
in
the
there?
rubber ducky in there. Like one time, she was like, I was about to go to the starting line, and she's like, Sierra, I have not found anything this week. Like, I'm so sorry. I was like, well, better go in the motorhome
Like,
and
well,
find
come on,
something.
Mom. I'm gonna lose the
Yeah.
race then.
So
if
she
you
goes
wanna Go
inside.
get me something
and
lucky.
She pulls out a banana peel.
Oh.
And she goes,
something
here's
that rots.
yeah. So she's like, here's a banana peel. Like, this is all I got for you. I'm like, all right. I stuck it in my suit. And I'm like, we're going with it this race. It's a banana
How
peel.
did you do? Did you win?
No, I did not. I
Well,
did.
oh.
I did terrible. So I was like, we're not doing a banana peel again. Like,
We go back to the pennies. I've been pretty good
back
so
to the
far.
pennies. Yeah. So every race, I have to have something special for my mom to start the race.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both for coming out. I appreciate you coming back on the podcast, Sarah, and thank you, Sierra, for sharing all these great stories. And I wish you the best of luck. And I don't think you'll need it. You're destined for greatness. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me.